Howdy, all of you delicious people. I am here today to review Power Rangers and Tommy Oliver episodes. So, we of course go on into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episodes Green No More, a two-parter. Season 2, episodes 12 and 13, and we also go on to Power Rangers Turbo, episode 11, Wait and See. So, we end up having some unusual things go on in the Mighty Morphin episodes where it seems we have a future Tommy that is to phase in and talk to a Tommy that is wearing the exact same clothes as him. So I'm kind of wondering what future is Tommy going on and talking to other Tommy. But not only that, we also have the Dark Rangers that don't exactly have a good payoff to this build of them seemingly coming in and going on to take out the Rangers. That never really happens. We also end up having Tommy do a thing that I would say it's like, well, wait a minute, I saw another episode somewhere down the road where a monster went into Tommy's belly. Now we're kind of seeing the opposite here, and I'm a little bit like goofed about that. We also have certain characters that are to be added into these episodes to just kind of quickly write them off and not really have them much tie into the episode. It's like, hey, like, Zach has a cousin for reasons we don't understand. Is he going to be the 7th Ranger? No, then what is the point of him being written into the show? Anyways, did they try to kill time much? I don't know. So, we also had this all really lead up to the Goldar Tommy fight. The Superman freaking punch was sweet. That was pretty awesome. I liked that. We end up almost having like this kind of like Superman 2 kind of thing. Kneel before Zod. I said kneel. Crunch with the hand. You guys remember Superman 2 where it's like ah. It breaks his hand. So like I would say that I had fun with the Green No More thing, but there was so much about it where it's like, this has such weird things that don't pay out, and it's so weird. And I would say that it's a solid okay episode. Compared to a lot of the other Green Ranger episodes, like, I would say that, like, clearly, like, this story arcing thing wasn't that great, but it was still positive enough for me to thumbs it up. You know what I'm saying? So we then go on into the Power Rangers Turbo episode 11, Wait and See, where we have Kat, who it seems is to be doing ballet to get a part in the Nutcracker. We, of course, have one girl who's to give Kat crap about her body shape, and I would go on and state that it's like, oh, like, you're giving crap about Kat's body shape because she's very muscular and she can snap you like a twig, but you're gonna go on and give her crap anyways? Please, go ahead and give a very muscular woman crap, and she'll just snap you in two. She'll do it. I've seen it with my own eyes. She'll kick you in the face into oblivion. She'll do it. But please, give her crap. Cause she's just better looking than you, sadly enough. Cause she's muscular and you're just skin and bones. Skin and bones. Sadly enough. No offense to the actress, it's just, like, it is what it is. She's a star, and you're not. Hey, like, freaking everybody should just be happy that they got work. and I'm giving the actress and the character too much crap, and I'm sorry. Honestly. Anyways, so we have Kat who it seems that she's gonna get her own episode, but like I don't think it gets enough there, but it gets pretty close. We also have a really interesting villain in this story that is Numbor, and like I was like, okay, like they do something really unique here. I like the fact that they're kind of having this character that like pluses and subtracts and does goofy things and um, leaving our characters in the dust, or in this place, sand. We have Justin and Adam who has this project of sorts, and I'm like, why? Busy work, I get it, but so on and so forth. Um, but yeah, so like I would state that also the Power Rangers Turbo episode is a solid okay episode. Because really it's also just a Power Rangers Turbo episode, which like a solid okay is probably like better than probably a lot of other episodes for probably Power Rangers Turbo. Or just like, man, this is goofy. Um, we also have the Bulk and Skull chimpanzees that have goofy things going on, and that's probably my huge thing about the effect of the grading of this episode is just like, hey, it's really just you like had to go on and write out certain characters, so yeah, like that's what you did. Uh, but hey, like look at other seasons that obviously there are goofier, weirder characters and whatever that they try to do to write out so many characters that all wanted time away, that all wanted time off, that probably all got freaking burnt out because they had gone on to do so many things for this show. And when thinking about it, Bulk and Skull could only get hit with pies so many times before they go on, and they're like, you know what, I can't get hit with another pie one more gosh darn time. So, with that said, let's go into it. Let's go on to double five this bad boy up. Because about that time, yet again, to of course go into another spoiler time. It's about the time you spoil these episodes. I don't know where I went there, but I went there. So, we go on to, of course, have Tommy, who's talking to Kimberly in the beginning of this episode. And we, of course, have Tommy as per usual. He's always afraid about losing his power. And so we, of course, go on to have Tommy, who is all of a sudden getting a vision of a future him talking to him as if like Tommy is to be kind of like Flash was for Batman in the Batman versus Superman movie, The Dawn of Justice, where he tells Batman it's like Lois Lane is the key, and like we never really understood what all that was about. But so we end up having Tommy who gets told by future Tommy, it's like, well, hey, like your communicator, like remember your communicator. So Tommy is like, okay, like what was that message? Because some parts of it was like kind of like cut off or buffered, like it was just like, and Tommy, I need to tell you an important message. And you know what to do, Tommy. What? What was my important message, future me? Man, like, you guys need to get some better technology in the future to just give me that message. So, we of course have Zed, who is to go on and be watching on as Tommy is to talk to his future self. And both Tommy and future self Tommy are wearing the exact same clothes. So how deep into the future is that really? So Zed is going on and talking about Tommy's annihilation, and they have something planned for this episode. And Goldar's like, "Tell me!" Like he did in that other episode. God, that was so funny. It's like, "Tell me, huh?" So we have Tommy, Zach, and Billy who make their way into Angel Grove High. Is it? Yeah. I'm trying to like remember like all the different seasons and all the different locations. Like Dino Fury has like Pine Ridge, and like Dino Thunder has like Reefside. Why do they have to go on and change all of these locations? I'm so like, why take the time? Why couldn't it all still been Angel Grove? Was there like a whole like they didn't want to pay anybody for whoever invented like the Angel Grove or whichever? Like they didn't want to pay somebody whoever came up with that name? I don't know. I don't get it. They all filmed in New Zealand anyways, so it's the same place either way. But so we have Tommy, Billy, and Zach, and they come into school realizing that somebody's dancing around, and that, of course, ends up being Curtis, Zach's cousin. Where do they go with Curtis in this story? Zilch, Dilda, Data, nowhere, but we see him in other episodes, so there's that for you. We had Curtis going on and playing with the Power Rangers in another episode somewhere down the road. So that probably has something to do with Tommy probably losing his Green Ranger powers. Because all of them do. Anyways, so we have Curtis who meets up with some guy named Richie, and Richie is talking about how he wants to go to the juice bar to get a job, so they kind of walk off. The next thing we know is that there's some barrels kind of rolling around, and all of a sudden Bulk and Skull, who are not chimps in this episode, they're chimps in Turbo, but not this one. Anyways, so we have the Power Rangers, or the three that are Tommy, Zach, and Billy, all go on and watch Bulk and Skull come running to them, and they're like, oh my god, like, they're in such fear. And come to find out, we are to see Justin, Zane, Bobby, Tina, and Kristen, who are to eventually be the Dark Rangers, but there's not going to be good enough payout with that. So we find that all these kids are to be the new kids on the block, and Tommy is to go on and like try to like stick up for some of the other classmates, and Tommy's to like get right next to him. I was like, well, hey, like maybe you guys should learn some respect and so on. So we all of a sudden have Stuart who comes in and they grab his backpack and they take his pocket protector and they just kind of shove him back into this class. So Tommy ends up getting the backpack, and the Dark Rangers give back the pocket protector. Billy knocks in the door and says, "Hey, Stuart, come out here so you can get your stuff." Stuart gets his stuff back, and then he kind of walks off screen. So we had Tommy, who had also talked to Kimberly about getting a bioscan via Alpha and Zordon, and come to find out, once Tommy does go to the command center and get this bioscan, it seems that we go on to find out that this bioscan is to state that like Tommy will lose his power soon. Did we think it was going to be any different? If he becomes another Ranger, that obviously states that he, of course, will lose his power. So we have, of course, that in this episode, we have Lord Zed, who is to have this unusual green crystal that, to me, kind of looks like the toy. If you guys were ever to have gone on and seen for Star Trek Next Generation, there was to be the engineering set toy, where, like, in the engineering toy, they would have this, like, crystal thing that would go into the engineering thing, and the crystal, of course, would look just like this green crystal. And it was kind of like all spiky and whatever, but anyways. So Goldar has it, and it's like, well, yeah, like, the more and more that the Green Ranger will use his power, the more this crystal will be filled with Tommy's power. So, cue the Rangers going on to the beach, and Kimberly's building the sandcastle and so on and so forth. It's giving me flashbacks of that Dino Fury episode. That wasn't that good. So, Kimberly's talking to Billy, and so they have to write out Trinity or Trinity. I'm watching The Matrix, I guess, too much. They are to write out Trini to state that Trini is off with some relatives, and she is also just thinking about Tommy, and I would assume that Trini is thinking about her time away, her time off. So we have what is left of the Rangers besides Tommy and Trini all go on to meet up with what is to be the Dark Rangers, because of course they are to state that they really want to go on and fight these Rangers, and we have Zed who's like, oh my god, these kids are to be everything that I want them to be, and I want to go on and teleport them to the other world. You mean to tell me that you already have, the dark dimension just raring to go, but now you're going to teleport them to another place called the other world? Please tell me that other world, is an actual other world that they're really going to play with at some point. Man, would that be fun to find out that was a legit other world, and, we could just do a whole another, goofy story thing, but, we need to use that other world somehow. But yeah, so they teleport all the Dark Rangers to teleport them there. And so we also have Zed, who is telling the Dark Rangers that he's also stating that he's going to set up the Turban Shell, the monster of this week. So we, of course, have Turban Shell that ends up going on to be a big, massive monster. We, of course, have all the Power Rangers who need to go on and morph and try and fight off Turban Shell. So we come to find out that the Power Rangers are getting into their Thunder Megazord and trying to fight off Turban Shell. And come to find out, Turban Shell is so strong with his attacks that we end up having the Power Rangers that all kind of fall off to this one side, and then they all fall out of their Zords. I'm like, man, I've seen, out of every episode that I've gone on to choose at some point, I've seen a lot of just Rangers falling out of their Zords. I think it happens way too often in the show, but that's just probably the coincidence of me picking story arcs or big events. So, we had also had Tommy go on and call for the Dragon Zord, and the Dragon Zord came out. So, but I guess it seemed that the only real focus was on the Thunder Megazord. So we have Turban Shell that leaves the battle of these Megazords, to try to go back to Goldar and Zed, and they of course are furious. They're like, well, hey, like, why aren't you like back defeating the Rangers? And Turban Shell's like, well, I needed to come back because I needed to recharge. And they're like, nah, 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 nah. So we go on, of course, to have Tommy getting sent to the other world, and we also had the Power Rangers get their communicators jammed, and they get sent to the other world. And so we have Zed that is to realize that like his green crystal is becoming almost fully green towards almost glowing. So Zed shows off the Dark Rangers and showing off that they're there. And so now Tommy is demorphed and is in this other world, and he's kind of hiding from Turban Shell. And we of course have Tommy who's kind of like hiding behind this rock, and we have a to be continued, which that story will continue from where we left off. So we go on into the next episode to have Tommy, who is to try and desperately fight off Turban Shell, and like it really is not working. No matter what Tommy tries to do, Turban Shell will get an advantage on him. So like we have Tommy at one point who's trying to like hide in this little kind of this little hole, and he's like grabbing on the foot of Turban Shell, trying to knock him down. We even have one point where Tommy grabs uh, the staff or the weapon from Turban Shell, but Turban Shell then grabs it back and then just takes out Tommy. So we have Alpha and Zordon who are dealing with Zed's energy field that they are trying to combat because they cannot call the Rangers. They cannot communicate with them. So I have to use my prop as much as I can because might as well make sense of it. So we are coming to find out that if the command center doesn't go on and solve this energy field problem, that the command center can get compressed, can get pushed in, kind of like how you would go further and further into really deep water and things would start to smush, and the command center could then explode from this compression. So we then queue up Goldar and Zed, and heaven forbid I remember what they were talking about, but another Goldar and Zed scene. So I think Zed is going on and telling Goldar to head to go on and kind of finish Tommy off. So, because that's what kind of happens. So we have the Rangers who go back to Earth, and because they're no longer in the other world, and so Billy is stating that there may be a way to use certain equipments at his lab, because now I figured out that it's Billy's lab now. I never knew what it was before, but I guess it's just called Billy's lab. So that maybe they can figure out a way to break this energy field. So we now have Goldar versus Green Ranger, or Tommy, because he's demorphed. So we have Goldar that tells the Turban Shell to kind of like, hey, bail, like, I'm gonna go on and take care of Tommy myself. So we have Goldar that is talking to Tommy, and like and forcing him. It's like, okay, Tommy, like Neil, tell me that I'm your better, and so on and so. Tommy is almost tempted to just give in to Goldar, but instead he's like, no. So we have the Superman punch, and we have Tommy who goes on to just start really destroying Goldar, really like punching him and kicking him, knocking him down. So we have the Power Rangers. They're in Billy's lab trying to figure out what they can do to help out the situation because they seem to be powerless right now, and they're watching on in the news as Turban Shell is kind of wreaking havoc on the town. And the news reports are like, where are the Power Rangers? Like, we need their help more than ever now. So, because, of course, when you have a big, giant, massive monster just wreaking havoc through an area that really is just a bunch of mountains and just like, it's not like it's destroying a city or anything. It's just destroying some mountains and some places that have no actual area where there's humans at because it's not a city. So we have Goldar that is to also be talking to Tommy, and he has this unusual time device for whatever goofy reason. So Tommy ends up, when he defeats Tommy, or when Tommy defeats Goldar, uh, Tommy gets the time device from off of Goldar, and so now since Tommy has the time device, he ends up talking to his other self, and his other self is giving him his communicator. So we have Tommy who gets back this communicator and teleports from out of this other world. So we have the Rangers that go on and are to figure out the whole like energy field crisis. And so what ends up happening is that Tommy ends up needing to go back to the other world because he is going to go on to surprise Zed and steal the green crystal and break it, and then kind of go back to the other world, or Earth 1 instead of the other world. So after Tommy goes on and does that, we then have Turban Shell that ends up, of course, being large, and so we then have the Thunder Megazord that ends up going on and is trying to fight against the Power Rangers here, but they again end up having, I think, a second time around, they end up getting knocked out of their Zord, and we end up having the Red Dragon Thunder Zord Warrior mode that is to, of course, try and take on this Turban Shell. And what ends up happening is that Tommy is to find out from Alpha and Zordon that he needs to somehow go into the Turban Shell's stomach to have this be his weakness. So we have Tommy that goes on to disguise himself as this produce, this fruit, and Turban Shell, once starting to defeat some of the Zords, is to look at this truck bizarrely and grab all the food in it, and just like, ah. So we have Tommy who goes in and starts blasting in the Turban Shell's stomach with this mega heat blaster and just continues to fire away until Tommy, it seems, is starting to lose air, but he tries to just continue to blast. And it seems that things are really working out, and like Turban Shell's like, oh my god, my stomach, this is horrible. And so Zack ends up finding the common everyday hose and is to blast the Turban Shell with this hose, and all of a sudden we have the Turban Shell that is to go from really hot in his stomach to really cold in his face, to where there's like ice chunks on his face. I'm like, okay, this is very odd. So we then, of course, have the Power Rangers who go back into their Megazord form, and they blade the Turban Shell and they destroy him. So we then have the Rangers making it back to the juice bar to come to find out that the Dark Rangers had just go on to come back to the juice bar from the other world, and they have no memory of them ever going on to become the Dark Rangers, because of course not. So Jason makes the clear consensus that maybe these guys just need friends, and maybe they'll turn around. Maybe they'll be nicer to them. So Jason realizes that the guys are just wanting something at the juice bar, so Jason pays for it because he's the lead actor. Like, hey man, like you guys are just kind of like having these small roles. Like, I'm kind of a guy who's consistently been here, so I'll just kind of pay a little your way. So we go on after that and have the Rangers all make it back to the command center, and so we go on, and it seems that the Power Rangers kind of like taking some like break of sorts. Like maybe this is some kind of like mid-season thing or something like that, because Tommy goes on to now state to everybody, like before he leaves from them, that it's like, well, hey, like I hope you guys all enjoy your summer break, and I'm gonna keep you all close to my heart. And so when they all kind of break, that's when the episode ends. And so now it's about that time to go on into Power Rangers Turbo episode 11, Wait and See. So it would have been really interesting if the Wait and See thing would have been SEA, and then they would have had like a sea monster. But anyways, but you had like the wait, and like that makes more sense. But anyway, so we start like we start any normal Power Rangers Turbo episode that I've seen, with the subcraft. So we have Rygog and Elgar who are complaining about whether they should go left or right with this subcraft, and Porto's like, well, hey, you guys better decide something soon, or we're probably going to crash anything, and then boom, they do. So we have Divatox, who's just ticked off because she's always ticked off. So we then go on into, of course, Kat doing the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker! Because, of course, we have the music playing in the background. So we, of course, have this this woman who is going on to figure out who is going to be the lead in the Nutcracker. And we have Myrtle and we have Kat, who seem to be like vying for this lead position. And Myrtle is saying like how like confident she is, that she's kind of like she's really good at what she does, and that I'm sure Kat will go on and get some minuscule role and stuff like that because of her body shape. Rake you like a twig. So, come to find out, when the caster, the the woman who cast the roles, she ends up going on to give Kat the Clara role. So next up, we end up having Justin and Adam doing this tide marker thing, and they end up meeting with Numbor, and they end up meeting up with some Piranhatrons. So we of course have Justin and Adam who wipe the floor with the Piranhatrons. So we then have Numbor who leaves after that, but we start to realize that the tide is coming in a little bit higher than we were to have thought it would be, and Justin and Adam start to make that clear consensus later on in the episode. So we have at the juice bar, we have Tommy, Kat, and Tanya, and Kat is refraining from eating, even though it seems that like she is hungry, because she's kind of like touching on her stomach, and she's kind of like, you know what, I should probably eat something, but I'm not going to. I want to just slim down to show some more muscle definition from these bythons or trithons or musculars or muscles, as they say in English. So we then go on and have a Power Rangers threat that the characters have to leave. So we all of a sudden have the chimps Bulk and Skull that are trying to go on and do something to impress Lieutenant Stone. Bulk is trying to like stack all these cups to impress Stone, and so since they realize that there is food on this table, both Bulk and Skull, the chimp versions, go on to try and steal this food. We seem to also had Divatox in this periscope, and she goes on to try to look around and see Kat. So we have Divatox that is to go on and ask Numbor like how he thinks that Angel Grove is going to do as far as like the water, and like we come to find out that Angel Grove seems to be sinking or the water is rising. So we go on to have this device coming into play that they give to Numbor that I believe is either called the Devastation device or the Destination device. So we go on to have Divatox specifically have Numbor, who is to find Kat and attack her. So when we of course have Numbor that goes on to fight with Kat, he ends up going on to make her lighter, and all of a sudden we have both Tommy and we have Tanya who go to meet up with Kat. All of a sudden Kat is now being light as a feather, and she's starting to float away, and they're grabbing onto her, making sure that she doesn't completely float off. But we all of a sudden have Kat who loses both Tommy and Tanya, and it seems that she's just flying away. She's not flying up, she's flying like the way of which that it's like, okay, like it doesn't quite seem like it makes exact sense for her to be kind of be going this way instead of this way, but it is what it is. So once the Rangers make it to the power chamber, my bad. It's Turbo now. It's power chamber. Oh wait, that happened in like Zeo. So like it's past Zeo, so it's now power chamber. So either way, it's still the command center to me. It still has Alpha in it, so it's still the command center. But so we have an Alpha 6 whose accent is very unusual. So we have the people at command center, and they're trying to figure out like, well, hey, how can we solve Kat's problem? And so Demetrius says that it's like, well, like it's not that we need to help Kat, it's that Kat needs to help herself. So, because of course Demetria and her riddles and her rhymes and her whatever that she does. So, the rest of the Rangers besides Kat have to morph without her to fight off against Numbor. And so, while Numbor is fighting off these Rangers, we have Atom, who ends up getting seemingly 1,000 pounds heavier as Numbor adjusts Atom's weight to have him get shoved into the sand, which is like, wow, that looks so awesome. And also, that's probably the reason why I made the thumbnail, because visually that looks cool. We also had Tommy, who it seems to not get the treatment as similar to Adam, but pretty close. So, Tommy ends up getting flipped, and he has some sand over his body, but not as much as Adam was. I guess they couldn't have gone on and dug 2 holes that day, but it is what it is. So, Tommy is trying to really, like, figure out how to wiggle away from this weight problem. Adam is telling Tommy, it's like, well, hey, like, the more you struggle, the more tired you'll get. Like, you're just gonna go nowhere. So, Tanya just gets kind of just tossed around. She gets like smacked into a number of things, but like nothing really cool happens to her. Why not? Something cool should have happened to her, but she just kind of gets flung around. We then have Justin, who is like by Numbor, is just kind of getting subtracted, and what really is going on with Justin is he's just kind of floating in the air as Numbor is just kind of blasting him. So Kat is now back at the command, or the power chamber, and Kat is talking to Demetria and Alpha 6, and it seems that Kat has come to the realization that it's not about what other people think, it's what Kat's heart is what really the thing that counts. So Kat all of a sudden goes back down to the way of which that she should be. And so Kat now is to go into the fight, is to morph, and so we of course now have Numbor that is kind of using these numbers as this like goofy pun, where he's like, you make me 6. fling the number 6. Numbor, man, like, it's like kind of fighting like a Sesame Street villain. Which I think, man, would that be really sweet, right? They should literally go on and have an episode where we have the Power Rangers who actually fight a frickin' Muppet. That would be hilarious! Like, what if the Power Rangers turned into, like, Muppet versions of themselves? Like, I know that sounds like an Angel episode, but still, that sounds like a goofy idea. Because I know that happened in the, if you guys remember the Buffy, there was the Buffy the Vampire show, and then there was the Angel show that came after that. There's one episode in some point of the later seasons of Angel where he literally becomes a puppet for some goofy reason. But it was kind of funny. We also had the monsters or the villains that were also puppets as well. So it was just kind of this really interesting episode. Man, would it be funny if they went on and did Muppet Rangers? Oh my god, they should do that in some episode. Maybe they should do it in Cosmic Fury. It'll be so strange, and people are like, why does this exist? But it'll be freaking hilarious. So we then go on to, of course, have the torpedoes being launched for Numbor to become big. Then we end up having to call for the Turbo Megazord after everybody is done feeling like they weigh 1,000 pounds. So we end up having Numbor, who is like grabbing all these unusual items and all these weird things. So he ends up having like one that ends up turning into this like missile silo, and he ends up shooting off all these missiles. Then he ends up going on to see these doves, and he has this like duck, and he kind of chucks the duck. And then he goes on to have like 3, but he has this like ear, and he's like, I don't know what to do with this, and he chucks it. So we end up having the Megazord that goes on to blade it up. Ka-ching, freaking destroys him as it kind of spins and then destroys him. Really interesting move. Kind of like how the spinning kick was for the Ninja Megazord. I thought those kind of things that they did with the Zords were like really cool. Like how they did that. It was probably just some like toy thing or like CGI moment or whatever, but still, it looked pretty interesting. So they killed, of course, Numbor. They go back to destroy that device, and Cat blasts it. And so we, of course, have Divatox, who is just really upset again, possibly thinking about her going on and like hiring somebody else to do the job, or like firing other people because they're just ignorant. But Divatox just being frustrated. So the next thing we end up seeing is that Cat is in the Nutcracker, and she's kind of performing the beginning of this, where she's kind of waking up with this Nutcracker and she's dancing with it. And we have like Lieutenant Stone and a number of the Rangers who are kind of all watching on, and they're like, yeah, this is great. And so we then turn to like the last bit of the episode or the last bit of the play, where everybody is to go on and all be done with the play, and they all take this bow, and even Myrtle is to be like, yeah, I just did this insignificant role. Oh, this sucks. So, and she's just sad about it. So we have everybody giving Cat a round of applause because, yeah, like, focused episode for a character, yeah. But yeah, so that's just kind of how the episode ends, and they have this like weird, goofy extra scene where Bulk and Skull are both in like ballet costumes for some goofy reason. But they don't really do anything with that, so I guess it was just a deleted scene or a something that they had, and they're like, well, hey, I guess we'll just do the blooper reel with this because we had the scene in here for whatever reason, anyways. So with that said, I think I'm just going to go on and get out of here. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I did forget about, because there was several villain moments that I would always just kind of forget about this episode because I really want to focus on the Power Ranger part. So there's always like the side villains that have these gripes or have these stupid little things. They kind of get annoying after a while, to where it's just like, okay, like, what is the point of this scene? Like, is it to not tell us where the story is going? Not really. It's just to state that they don't really like the Rangers, so you have to kind of go on and insult the Rangers, or just kind of insult one of your goons because you failed again as a villain for the 80th time. So with that said, I'm going to go on and get out of here. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for anybody retro going into these episodes and watching them. I really do appreciate it. So at least these were positive episodes, and it's kind of unusual for me to not to now have done this whole episode for an hour. So I'm just kind of like, like, wow, like I got done in 48 minutes. What a massive surprise. So with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, buddy.